The boy's shoe was still tied when they found it. That detail haunted me more than it should have. A single Nike sneaker, size 9, sitting in the middle of the desert 20 miles from the nearest road. Laces double knotted the way mothers teach their children. No sign of struggle. No blood. No body, just a shoe that someone had been wearing when they walked into nothing and never walked out. It was the 14th one we'd found in 6 months. I stood in the morning heat, holding that shoe in my gloved hands, and felt the same cold certainty I'd felt 13 times before. This wasn't about illegal crossings or immigration, status, or any of the political noise that made people stop seeing human beings. This was about predators, and someone in a federal uniform was helping them hunt. What I didn't know yet was that proving it would put me against an entire Border Patrol station. A supervisory agent who thought badges made him untouchable, and a system designed to protect itself first and victims never. But I also didn't know that I had one advantage they'd never see coming: a phone number I'd sworn never to use again, and a name that made federal agents freeze in their tracks. The shoe went into an evidence bag. I photographed the location, marked the GPS coordinates, and added it to a file that was getting disturbingly thick. Back at the station, Deputy Rosa Mendez was waiting with a woman who looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands twisted a tissue into shreds, and when she saw me, she stood up so fast her chair scraped across the floor. "Sheriff Callahan," she asked in accented English. "They said you help people, even people like us." I gestured to my office. "Come in. Tell me what happened." Her name was Carmen Diaz. Her son Miguel was 19 years old. 3 days ago, he'd called her from a Border Patrol processing center, excited and relieved. "Mama, they're releasing me. I have my court date. I'm taking the bus to Phoenix tonight. I'll see you tomorrow." It's the last time she heard his voice. "The bus company says he never got on," she told me, tears streaming down her face. "His phone goes straight to voicemail. I called Border Patrol. They said he was released. What he did after isn't their problem. But Miguel wouldn't just disappear. He was coming home to me." She showed me photos on her phone. A young man with his whole life ahead of him, smiling at the camera, wearing Nike sneakers, size 9. My stomach turned to ice. "Mrs. Diaz," I said carefully, "did Miguel have any distinguishing features? Birthmarks, tattoos, anything?" "A scar," she said, "on his left hand from when he fell as a child, shaped like a crescent moon." I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo I'd taken that morning. The shoe lying in the sand. She gasped, covering her mouth. "That's his. That's Miguel's shoe." "Where did you find it?" 20 miles into the desert, in a place where there's no reason for anyone to be walking. "Is he?" She couldn't finish the question. "We didn't find anything else." "Which means he might still be alive." "But Mrs. Diaz, I need you to understand something. Your son isn't the first person to disappear after being released from Border Patrol custody. He's the 14th in 6 months. Her face went pale. 14. And nobody is doing anything. "I'm doing something now," I said. "But I need to ask you some hard questions. Did Miguel tell you anything about the agents who processed him? Did he mention any names?" She thought hard. He said one agent was very friendly. Asked him questions about where he was going, if he had money, if he was traveling alone. Miguel thought he was being kind. "But now, do you remember the agent's name?" "Something with V. Victor. Vincent. No Viga, Agent Viga." I wrote it down, my hand steady, even though my pulse was racing. After Carmen left, I pulled up everything I could find on Border Patrol operations in our region. There were 3 processing centers within 50 miles. I cross-referenced the dates and locations. Of all 14 disappearances, every single one happened during night shifts. Every single one happened at the same processing center. And when I looked at the duty roster's information, that took some creative database searching to access, I found what I was looking for. Agent Thomas Vega had been on duty for every single Disappearance. I needed to report this. But to who? I called the Border Patrol Sector Headquarters and asked for the supervisory agent. After being transferred 3 times, I finally got through to Supervisory Agent Daniel Crowder. "Sheriff Callahan," he said, his tone making it clear he already didn't want to deal with me. "What can I do for you?" "I have 14 missing persons cases, all involving migrants who were released from your custody over the past 6 months. And I think there's a pattern. I think someone is targeting them." He sighed, the sound of a man who'd heard complaints before and dismissed them just as quickly. "Sheriff, with all due respect, we process hundreds of people every week. We release them with instructions to appear in immigration court. What they do after that isn't our responsibility. People aren't skipping court dates. They're vanishing. I found evidence in the desert. The desert is a dangerous place. People make poor decisions. That's not Border Patrol's fault." "Agent Crowder, I have families reporting their loved ones missing within hours of release. I have personal effects found miles from any logical route. This isn't people getting lost." His voice went cold. "Sheriff Callahan, let me be very clear. Immigration enforcement is federal jurisdiction. You have no authority here. I suggest you focus on county-level crimes and leave federal operations to federal agents, even when those operations might be connected to human trafficking. Especially then. Stay in your lane, Sheriff." The line went dead. I sat staring at my phone, anger burning cold in my chest. Rosa appeared in my doorway. "I heard that from here. He shut you down." "Completely. What are you going to do?" I pulled up a different file on my computer, case files from my FBI days. Investigations I'd worked on before I became Mara Callahan. "I'm going to do what I always do when the front door is locked. Find a window." Over the next week, I conducted my own investigation, quietly and carefully. I interviewed more families. 8 more people came forward with similar stories, loved ones released from Border Patrol custody, headed to bus stations or meeting points, never arriving. I talked to bus drivers, ticket sellers, and local business owners near the processing center. And I found him. Don Ernesto ran a taco stand across from the bus station. He was 70 years old, had lived in the area his entire life, and noticed things. "Sometimes I see vans," he told me in Spanish, Rosa translating. "White vans, no markings. They pull up late at night after the buses stop running. Men get out, talk to people who are waiting. They say they offer rides to Phoenix, to Tucson, jobs waiting. The people get in. I never see them again." "How often does this happen?" "Once, twice a month. Always late. Always the same vans." "Did you report this?" He looked down. "To who?" "Border Patrol. They don't care about people like us. Local police. They say it's not their problem. So I just watch and pray." "Did you ever see the license plates?" His eyes lit up. He pulled out an old smartphone. I started taking pictures, in case someone ever cared enough to ask. The photos were grainy but usable. I could make out partial plate numbers, vehicle descriptions, even faces of some of the men. I ran the plates through every database I could access. They came back registered to an LLC in Nevada with no physical address, a shell company. Classic trafficking operation setup. I had a pattern. I had evidence. I had witnesses. What I didn't have was jurisdiction. I called Sarah Chen, my old partner from the FBI. "Sarah, I need HSI, Homeland Security investigations." "Mara, they don't get involved unless it's massive." "It's massive. Human trafficking using Border Patrol intelligence. Someone inside is feeding information to traffickers who has money, who's traveling alone, who has family. The victims are being intercepted before they can disappear into the interior." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "You have proof. Strong, circumstantial. 14 disappearances, all connected to one agent's shifts. Witness testimony about suspicious vans. Evidence in the desert. But Border Patrol is stonewalling me." "Who's the supervisory agent?" "Daniel Crowder." "And you think he's involved?" "I think he's protecting someone." Maybe himself. Jesus, Mara. You know who investigates Border Patrol corruption? Who? Mateo Reyes? The name hit me like a physical force. I knew it. Everyone in federal law enforcement knew it. El Martillo. The Hammer. He's still active. More than ever. He's a legend. Takes down entire trafficking networks. Doesn't care who he pisses off. Has direct authority from the deputy director of HSI. When Mateo starts an investigation, it doesn't stop until he's satisfied justice is done. Will he talk to me? For you. Yeah. You two worked that operation in El Paso together, right? 7 years ago. I didn't think he'd remember. Mateo remembers everyone. Especially the good ones. Want me to make contact? Please, but quietly. If Crowder finds out I'm going over his head, he'll bury you. I know. I'll be discreet. 2 days later, before Sarah could even arrange a meeting, Crowder found out I was still investigating. He showed up at my office with 2 other agents, walking in like he owned the place. Sheriff Callahan, we need to talk. I stood up slowly. About what? About you overstepping your authority, interviewing people about federal matters, making accusations against federal agents without evidence. I haven't made any accusations. I'm investigating disappearances that happen to involve people released from federal custody. Those people are under federal supervision. Their status, their whereabouts, their safety all federal concerns, not county concerns. Rosa stepped into the doorway, hand resting on her service weapon. Not threatening, just present. Crowder noticed. Are you serious right now? You going to have your deputy intimidate federal agents? Deputy Mendez is observing, as is her right, I said calmly. And I'm not intimidating anyone. I'm simply not backing down from investigating crimes in my jurisdiction. Crowder leaned over my desk. Let me make this crystal clear. You continue investigating federal agents without proper authority, and I will make sure your career ends. I have contacts at every level of government. I can make you radioactive. You'll never work in law enforcement again. Is that a threat, Agent Crowder? It's a promise. Stay in your lane. After they left, Rosa was shaking with anger. He can't do that. That's witness intimidation, obstruction. He can do whatever he wants if nobody stops him. I picked up my phone, but I know someone he can't intimidate. The number Sarah had given me connected on the 3rd ring. Reyes. The voice was deep, with a slight accent, and carried the weight of someone who'd seen too much and stopped caring about consequences long ago. Agent Reyes. This is Sheriff Mara Callahan, Sagebrush County, Arizona. There was a pause. Then a low chuckle. Callahan. El Paso, 2018. The tunnel operation. You were the one who spotted the secondary entrance. You remember? I remember everyone who's good at their job. What do you need? I told him everything. The disappearances. The pattern. Thomas Vega. Don Ernesto's photos. Crowder's threats. Mateo listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was silence for 10 seconds. You have hard evidence on Vega? Circumstantial, but strong. If I could get access to his financials, I can get those. I'll need 24 hours. Crowder will try to block you. Crowder has no authority over me. Nobody does except the deputy director. And she doesn't interfere with my investigations. When I open a case, it stays open until I decide it's closed. What do you need from me? Set up a meeting. Crowder, Vega, whoever else you think is involved. Tell them it's interagency coordination on the missing persons cases. Make it official so they can't refuse. They'll come armed with lawyers and attitude. Good. I prefer it when they're confident. Makes the fall more satisfying. The meeting was scheduled for the following afternoon at a neutral location in the county. Administration Building's conference room. I made it official, sent formal invitations. Made it clear that federal-local cooperation on missing persons cases required. Face-to-face coordination. Crowder showed up with 3 other agents, including Thomas Vega. Vega was in his early 30s, clean-cut, with a kind of face that people instinctively trusted. He looked nervous but tried to hide it. Crowder was all confidence and barely concealed contempt. "Sheriff Callahan," he said, settling into a chair like he was doing me a favor. "I hope this meeting is productive and brief. We have actual federal work to do." "I appreciate you making time," I said. "I think we can resolve some confusion about jurisdictional." The door opened. The man who entered was tall, maybe 6'2", with iron gray hair and eyes that had seen things that would break most people. He wore a simple, dark suit, an HSI badge on his belt, and carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd never lost a fight that mattered. "Supervisory Agent Crowder," he said in that deep, unmistakable voice. "Agent Vega. I'm Special Agent Martillo Reyes, Homeland Security Investigations." The color drained from Vega's face. Crowder went very still. "Agent Reyes, I wasn't aware HSI had interest in this matter." Martillo placed a leather folder on the table. "As of yesterday, HSI is investigating potential human trafficking operations utilizing Border Patrol intelligence. Both of you are subjects of administrative investigation pending full review." "On whose authority?" Crowder demanded. Martillo opened the folder and slid a document across the table. "Deputy Director's signature. Dated yesterday. I have warrants for financial records, communications, and duty logs for every agent at your processing center for the past 12 months. This is outrageous." "Based on what evidence?" "Based on credible information provided by Sheriff Callahan, whose background in trafficking investigations is extensive." Martillo looked at me. "You didn't tell them about your FBI work." Crowder's eyes went wide. "FBI. 18 months undercover in a trafficking network," Martillo said conversationally. "Testified in 7 federal prosecutions. One of the best investigators I've ever worked with. So when she calls me and says she's found a pattern, I listen." He turned back to Vega. "Agent Vega, your financial records show deposits totaling $47,000 in an offshore account over the past 6 months. Your annual salary is $55,000. Want to explain where that money came from?" Vega's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. "You have the right to remain silent," Martillo continued. "And I strongly suggest you exercise it until you have a lawyer. Because right now you're looking at federal trafficking charges, conspiracy, and corruption. That's 25 to life." Crowder stood up. "This is a witch hunt. You have no actual proof. I have phone records showing Vega contacting known trafficking associates 43 times in 6 months. I have bank transfers. I have testimony from 2 individuals who were approached by men offering rides and jobs immediately after being processed by Vega." Martillo's voice never rose, but it carried absolute certainty. "And I have Sheriff Callahan's meticulously documented investigation that you tried to suppress." "I didn't suppress anything. You threatened a law enforcement officer conducting a legitimate investigation. That's obstruction." Martillo pulled out another document. "You're also under investigation, Crowder. We'll see how deep this goes." The meeting dissolved into chaos after that. Vega requested a lawyer. Crowder stormed out, already on his phone, probably calling every contact he had in Washington. But I could see it in his eyes. He knew it was over. Martillo stayed behind after everyone left. He looked at me across the conference table and nodded once. "Good work. I just connected dots. You cared when no one else did. That's what matters." He gathered his files. "This is going to get bigger. Vega will flip. He's not strong enough to go down alone. We'll find others." "How many others?" "In Border Patrol. Fewer than you think. Most agents are honest, but the corrupt ones, they do massive damage. Will we find the missing people?" His expression darkened. "Some, not all. You know that." I did know that. But I had to ask Dot over the next 3 weeks. Martillo's investigation tore through the entire operation like a controlled demolition. Vega broke within 48 hours, gave up everything. He'd been selling information to a trafficking network. Names, destinations, who had money. Who had family members in the U.S. The traffickers would intercept the migrants before they could reach their families. force them into labor, or hold them for ransom. The network operated across 3 states. Vega wasn't alone. 2 other Border Patrol agents were involved. And Crowder had known, maybe not the full extent, but enough that he should have reported it. His attempts to shut down my investigation weren't just bureaucratic territorialism. They were cover-up. Federal raids rescued 6 of the 14 missing people. They were found in terrible conditions, working in fields, held in houses. Terrified and brutalized, but alive. 8 others were dead. Bodies found in the desert, in shallow graves. In places where no one would have looked if Martillo's teams hadn't known where to search. Miguel Diaz was one of the survivors. When Carmen saw him at the hospital, she collapsed in tears. He was thin, bruised, traumatized, but alive. "Sheriff Callahan saved you," she told him through sobs. She never stopped looking. Miguel looked at me with eyes that had aged years in weeks. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for seeing us." "Kay?" That hit harder than any commendation ever could. The federal prosecutions moved fast. Vega pled guilty, cooperated fully, still got 20 years. The other 2 agents got 25 each. Crowder was charged with obstruction and accessory after the fact. He's looking at 10 years and the end of his career. The trafficking network leaders are awaiting trial. Martillo says they'll never see freedom again. One afternoon, Martillo stopped by my office before heading back to D.C. "You did good work here, Callahan. You broke the case. I just made a phone call. You saw a pattern everyone else missed. You fought when it would have been easier to listen to Crowder and back off. That took guts." "It took anger," I corrected. They were preying on the most vulnerable people in the system. The system's supposed to protect them. The system is made of people. And some people are corrupt. He nodded slowly. "You ever think about coming back? FBI, HSI. We could use someone like you." I did my time in the shadows. "This badge is enough. Fair?" He handed me a card. "But if you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you call me. Day or night." "You earned that." After he left, I sat alone in my office as the sun set over the desert. I thought about the 8 families who'd buried loved ones, about the 6 who'd gotten miracles, about 14 lives that mattered because someone refused to accept not your jurisdiction. As an answer, Rosa knocked on the doorframe. "Boss, there's someone here to see you." Don Ernesto walked in, holding a small package wrapped in brown paper. "Sheriff," he said in Spanish, Rosa translating. "I wanted to thank you for caring about people that the world forgets." He handed me the package. Inside was a small wooden carving of saint, intricately detailed. "San Miguel," he said. "Protector of the vulnerable. That's what you are." My eyes burned. "I'm just doing my job." "No," he said firmly. "Your job is to enforce laws. You did more. You saw us as human beings. That's rare." After he left, I placed the carving on my desk where I could see it every day. That night, I drove out to where we'd found Miguel's shoe. The desert was quiet under a sky full of stars. Echo sat beside me, content. I thought about borderlines humans draw on maps that suffering ignores. I thought about jurisdiction legal boundaries that sometimes protect the guilty more than the innocent. And I thought about justice which recognizes no borders, respects no corrupt authority, and depends entirely on people caring enough to fight for it. 8 families would never see their loved ones again. But because one woman refused to stay in her lane, 6 families got theirs back, and a network that had operated with impunity, protected by badges and bureaucracy, was destroyed. Some people think small-town sheriffs don't matter much in the big picture, but out here, in counties that maps barely show, we're sometimes the only thing standing between someone's son and an unmarked grave in the desert. And that matters. That matters more than jurisdiction, more than federal authority, more than any political boundary humans can draw. My phone buzzed. A text from Carmen, *Miguel is home. Thank you for bringing him back to me. *I smiled in the darkness. Because sometimes justice means catching killers and locking them away, but sometimes it means making one phone call to the right person who refuses to let corruption hide behind a badge dot. And when those two things align, when local determination meets federal power that can't be intimidated, that's when real change happens. Echo barked at a coyote in the distance. I started the truck and headed home, knowing that tomorrow there would be more work, more cases, more people who needed someone to care, and I'd be there. Not because I had jurisdiction, but because justice doesn't stop at county lines. It just needs someone brave enough to cross them.